but the focus has always been the same. It's always been on different digital skills, showing staff as many different digital tools as possible that they could use in their teaching.
What were the initial challenges that you came across when you started with this program?
Engagement, and I mean,
Yeah.
it continues to be a big challenge, and it's time commitment, I think, is the big barrier to engagement.
If any other institution were interested in creating a similar program, what foundational advice would you give them to start with?
I don't think to begin with we were quite getting it right in terms of what people actually wanted to learn about. So I think my biggest piece of advice was, ask them what they want and don't be too generic in the survey. Like, be really, really specific.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Unfiltered by Empowered, the podcast where we have unedited conversation with educators from around the globe. I'm Anshul Lau, your host, and in our podcast, as you have already seen, if you have not seen, we have conversation with passionate educators to uncover the challenges, celebrate their successes, and inspire with real life stories from frontline of education. Today, we are joined by Caroline, who works at Sunderland University, London, as an e-learning coordinator. We are thrilled to have her today to share her innovative and insightful work. I must mention that Caroline also joined us on our webinar series at Empowered Webinar Series. If you want to watch that recording, you should be able to find that link to the YouTube video in the description of this podcast. Caroline, welcome to Unfiltered by Empowered. To start off, could you tell us about a little bit about yourself, your current role in the digital learning team at Sunderland University, London, and also just generally your experience so far, how it has been in education and digital learning sector so far? Over to you,
Yeah.
Caroline.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Yes, so I'm Caroline. I currently, as already said, work at the University of Sunderland in London. I've been in my current role as an e-learning coordinator for just over 3 years. My 3-year anniversary was actually last month in May.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's flown by. Yes, so we're still a very small team here at the university. We were actually, when I first joined, there was only 2 of us. We have now grown to 4 people, so we've doubled in size, which is quite nice. And my particular area of focus has been academic development and learning design. So I spend a lot of time working with our academics, training them how to use different digital tools in their teaching, as well as then obviously designing asynchronous learning courses for them to complete. And we've recently branched out and started including students in this. So yeah, I do now design a lot of learning for students as well as academics.
Oh, thank you so
In
much.
terms,
Yeah,
sorry,
go
I
ahead.
was going to say, yeah, in terms of my experience in education. So I've been in education basically since I finished university, in various roles. I started in kind of like educational charities. Um, and then I went and worked at, well, it was still an educational charity, but it managed a lot of schools. And I worked in their teacher development department, running the events, and, well, kind of managing the logistics for that. But I was quite lucky because not long after I joined, they decided to implement a learning management system, which was really exciting and something I'd never come across before. So I sort of got very heavily involved in that, and then I helped, well, kind of manage the move over to blended programs where we'd have some online content for people, and then they'd come along to a workshop and obviously put it into practice. And basically, I wanted to do more of that. So I looked for a role that focused in that, and that's kind of how I ended up at the university.
Oh, that's interesting experience. So which LMS was it that you were working with that inspired you to get into educational learning technology sector?
So it was actually one that most people haven't heard of. It's called Finky, and
Is it
it's their,
Thinkific or is it Thinky?
it was called so it's Finky. So it's
Oh,
P
I've never
H
heard of this
I
before.
Yeah, no, it was very strange. So we were looking at two. So we were actually looking at Canvas, which is now what I work with, and we were looking at Thinky, and we decided to go with Thinky because for like the professional development purposes that we wanted it for, it made more sense. And it was very easy to use, really kind of intuitive, had a built-in kind of catalog where you could advertise your courses, whereas obviously Canvas, it's a bit more designed for student use.
Okay, yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
And I think there would be a task for our listeners. If you have used Thinky really before, please put in the comments there that what has been your experience so far and you enjoyed it as well. And I think congratulations on completing your 3 years. And it has been your podcast has been very timely that we
Yes.
could wish you. I think you mentioned that you have a small team and that you work in uh, academic development and learning design, which is a very vast area. So how do you work collaboratively? Do you have independently work with different schools or do you have different responsibilities within this portfolio that you support colleagues with?
Yeah. So like I say, where we are a small team, we all work, very, very closely together.
Okay.
But basically, kind of, with myself and the other e-learning coordinator, our role is split. So I take on academic development, and then he manages the kind of like back end of Canvas and the system side of things. Well, I say that's not all he does, but that's kind of his focus. So whereas, mine is on kind of the creating learning. I do also currently have an apprentice, and she's doing an apprenticeship in learning design
Oh,
essentially.
that's
Yeah,
amazing.
so it's a new apprenticeship. I think she's like one of the first to be doing it. So obviously, um, I guess in terms of like where then that kind of sits is we both design learning, and we definitely obviously do a lot of collaboration on, what do we think people need, and that kind of comes as a whole team. A lot of the time it'll be a case of an academic will come to, another member of the team and say, oh, I need support with this, and then they'll find another academic who needs
Yeah,
support with
yeah,
something, and then it obviously gets brought back to the team, and it's
yeah,
like we need something on this, whether it be a workshop or a actual asynchronous learning, and then kind of we all kind of like have our things that we have kind of naturally become specialized in.
yeah,
So like my colleague, his specialism is AI. So then if anything is related to AI, he kind
yeah,
of takes that on. With me, it's very much been digital tools. So if it's anything to do with a new digital tool, I kind of take that on,
yeah.
and also instructional design, because that's I did quite a lot of courses on it before I even joined this role, and then we're hoping um, that our apprentice, she's taken a really keen interest in gamification. So we're hoping that hopefully she'll then be able to take on that, and help our academics design learning that is very gamified.
Yeah, it's such an
But
interesting
yeah,
experience and the skill set that you have within your team. I think it's so good to hear that you have such a collaborative relationship with your team members. And I think eventually everybody comes up with a specialist skill set over time. Like in my team, we have got AI experts, gamification experts, and even learning design. And
yeah,
eventually, even if look at my journey, it has evolved. Earlier, it was gamification, then it was learning design. Now it's AI in all other areas, and working with
yeah,
expert colleagues who I can work with and have got the luxury of even working with them and guide them or help them in their areas. And it's so good to hear that you are having a wonderful experience at Sunderland University. So now coming back to your any key areas or major projects that you're working on that we can discuss or you would like to share with us?
yeah. So, well, at the moment, very, very, very recently, um, we launched Canvas Catalogue at the university. So previously, where we just had Canvas, it made it quite difficult to do asynchronous courses that people could just kind of like self-enroll on. We obviously had Achieve Starter Legend, but that was quite a formal process where people, would have to sign up, and then we'd add them to the module on Canvas and run the sessions with them. And then wherever we wanted to do asynchronous learning, it was very similar. It almost had to be someone had to come to us, and we'd go, okay, here we go, we can put you on this. So as a result, it was very limited what we offered in terms of any form of asynchronous learning. We focused more on workshops that people would come along to. And so when it was first decided that we were going to take it on, my manager was like, do you want to take the lead on this? And I was like, absolutely, it sounds amazing. We've recently, it's been taking up quite a lot of my time, because we did launch it to staff in April, and then to our students staff in March, students in April. And we had luckily quite a lot of content that we could already kind of put on there. But obviously it is still limited in terms of content at the moment. We've tried to get on as much as we could with our expertise. But now we're kind of trying to branch out, and we want more topics on there. So a big focus of mine at the moment is trying to convince teams to collaborate with me. So sort of using the subject matter experts we already have at the university and saying, look, if you give me your expertise and knowledge, I'll design the learning content. Me or one of the other members of the team will design the learning content for you and get it up. But so far, it's been going really well. I think having that ability for people to self-enroll and kind of take ownership over their learning has been excellent.
That's good to hear. You mentioned that it's open to students as well as staff members. So do we have two different iterations for staff and students, or is it a common module that they self-enroll on and they have different sections that they engage with?
Yeah, so there is kind of there's one overall that kind of has a bit of everything on, but we do direct staff and students to a certain subcatalogue where they'll find the learning resources that we think are relevant to them. That being said, we have at the moment decided to keep everything very open in terms of anybody could go and enroll on something. The reason being we don't have any kind of sensitive content on there, and I think even where a lot of the resources I've created are very specific to teaching pedagogy, I still think if a student's interested in going and being a teacher after they leave, it can't hurt them to go and do those courses now. We have divided it, but we've tried not to do it.
Absolutely, because there would be difference between, it might be overwhelming for some students to go into deeper pedagogical frameworks or approaches as well. Whereas for a teacher, this is what you will be planning and aiming at. And I think, can you even give us an overview of the structure of this Achieve Star to Legend program, if I'm right? Is it Achieve Star to Legend?
Okay. Yeah, Achieve Star to Legend, yes. So recently I've actually just ran another iteration of it. So we do 2 a year now. And the one I've just run was actually a complete redesign almost of our old version. So when we first started running the program, it was 12 weeks, and then kind of each week would focus on a specific digital skill that we thought the academics needed for teaching. It has slowly been cut down through over the course of the 3 years that it's now been running. But the focus has always been the same. It's always been on different digital skills, showing staff as many different digital tools as possible that they could use in their teaching. However, as obviously we've grown as a team and we've developed other resources, it kind of got to the point where it became almost not too basic, but it was basic in the sense that people would now have already had this training. So we developed a digital learning induction module on Canvas that everybody's added to, and they have to complete it. And when I was designing it, I noticed there was a lot of crossover with the Achieve program.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't want to be telling people the same thing again and again, because otherwise it's just a waste of theirs and my time. So yeah, we've recently actually just restructured the program. So it's now 6 weeks, and it's designed around the universal design for learning principles.
Yeah.
So kind of in the first week, they start with some of our internal policy around what modules and online learning and teaching with digital tools should look like. Then they move on to instructional design in the second week. And then it goes in, each week is then focused on one of the universal design for learning principles. So you've got the how of learning, the why of learning, and then the what of learning. And in each week of those, basically what they would do is they would do the theory of it in their own time. So they would learn what is the what of learning, and
Yeah.
and also that they would learn about some of the key strategies that they could use to design learning for the what of learning. Then in the workshop, we would then focus on the digital tools that they could use to apply those
That
strategies.
learning. Okay.
And then in the final weeks, so the 6 weeks of the course, to link it back to instructional design, it's focused on the tools that you can use, so the analytical tools you can use to get feedback and to assess your learning, and to obviously, and then kind of close the loop of, I'm going to review this and update as needed. So yeah, that's kind of, that's how it's structured now.
That's good to know.
Will
And
be
just
moving
wanted to
forward.
check, is the course self-paced or is it facilitated, that online bit that the people are engaging with?
So it's blended. So yeah, they
Okay.
have asynchronous content that
And
they do,
okay.
and then a workshop each week
Workshops,
with
it's okay.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what were the initial challenges that you came across when you started with this program?
Engagement, and I mean,
Yeah.
it continues to be a big challenge, and it's time commitment, I think, is the big barrier to engagement. It's one of the reasons why, as we've gone along, the program has got shorter and shorter, because we're just struggling to get people through 12 weeks of it. Also, they're trying to find a time for a workshop that suits everybody. You just can't. It's not possible. People teach at different times. So we've kind of moved over to, we've moved over now to where I pick a date and a time of each week. And then I just say, this is when the workshops will take place. Please don't sign up if you can't attend. Or if you still want to sign up, please come and speak to me, because obviously we do put everything online. So it could be
Yeah.
self-paced if needed,
Okay.
but we need a commitment to, that
Yeah. You're
you're
still there to
actually going to
support
do
them
that.
and facilitate their learning.
Yeah.
And also want to check that how many people can you accommodate in these programs? Do you have a limit of how many people can participate, maybe in workshops or the program overall?
No, so we don't. So no, we don't have a limit. The reason being that, well, we've never seen too many sign-ups that we couldn't accommodate, but
Okay.
also depending on the cohort size, I'm in a very lucky position where I can use my team. So whereas the cohort I just ran was only 7 people, so I was fine facilitating that and, doing the marking of their work, supporting with them where needed. But in the previous version of the program, we had about 24 people sign up, and that was a bit too
Yeah.
much for me. So my one of my colleagues very kindly became a tutor on the program as well, and then all the participants were either assigned me as their tutor or her as their tutor, and then we would, take on. I would still lead the sessions, but she would be there to support where needed, and then obviously we'd mark the work of only the people who we had in our group, and they knew who they could reach out to if they needed support.
Yeah. So do you have certain checkpoints as a part of the module or stages where you can check or assess their learning as they're going along? Or
Yeah.
how are they assessed?
So each week, they have to commit and they have to complete an assignment. And the assignment is them showing practical application of what they've learnt that week. So, for example, I have to think. So, for the why of learning, I think it was the why. Yeah, I'm sure it's the why of learning. We showed them Canva for creating pictures that they could use or infographics that they could use to support their learning in their Canvas modules. And we also showed them Review or Panopto even. We call it Review,
Yeah.
but it's actually
Yeah.
Panopto. Using Panopto to create video content. So then what their assignment was for the week was to actually go into one of their modules and use one of those tools to create content for their students.
Yeah.
And then they submit that and we review it, and we do give them a grade and also obviously feedback on how they
That's
could
amazing.
do it better next time.
Yeah. I think it must also encourage them to participate more. And I
Yeah.
must also say it for our listeners that, like Caroline mentioned, Review, which is Panopto, which is a lecture capture or system or a platform, which is just people use at different institutions by different names. At our university, Kiel, they call it Playback, and we use Panopto as well. Yes, I think we can continue now. And what encourages people to participate in this program? Because I've seen, like at any institution I've worked at, people always struggle to participate. And I think you've already mentioned that one of the challenges has been engagement. So, what is the motivation for them to participate in these programs, or this program
Yeah,
particularly?
yeah. So it isn't mandatory. We don't go
Yeah.
as far as to say it's mandatory. However, it kind of is. We're sort of towing the line. But I think what helps the most is that we have really good buy-in from our academic directors, and we have really good buy-in from our program managers. So when I go out and initially say, right, we're running another iteration of the program, does anyone want to sign up? I may not see that many signups, but then very soon after, I'll see them pushing it towards specific staff that they think need it. And then all of a sudden, I'll see much more signups. And I think by extension, you then get more engagement because people are kind of being urged to do it, and they're being told that they can have the time to do it as well. So it kind of gives them permission to make that space to
So,
do it.
is it factored into their workload? If they're doing
Well,
something like this program or a CPD, as you mentioned, that there was a good kind of acknowledgement by the directors, particularly of education. So how, if they are encouraging people to participate, but I believe it has to be factored in the workload or any participation that different colleagues are doing. So do they have any acknowledgement like that at your university?
yes, yeah. I mean, it would definitely be factored into their workload because when we have a few associate lecturers as well, and obviously they're allowed to submit their time for when they do the program. So then, they're not doing it for free. And yeah, we've definitely made it part of kind of professional development as well.
Oh,
So
that's
a lot
amazing.
of the time, yeah, when they're doing reviews, it will be, oh, you should go and do this program. And also we actually have an overview of our digital learning support, and it's structured over the course of somebody's first 2 years with us. And we do say that within a year of being with us, you should have completed
Okay.
or be completing the program. So yeah, it's becoming very much I don't know
Like
what the
as an
word is.
enforced opportunity, I would say.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in a way that you can't avoid, but it's an
In,
opportunity for you that you have to participate with.
I know, embedded. It's becoming very
Yeah,
embedded in, yeah,
yeah.
in our kind of onboarding even, as well as,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think you've rightly worded it. I couldn't have done it better. So I think for staff, if it's we're enforcing as an opportunity like embedding, but why would students participate with this program, and what is the incentive for them to be doing this program?
Well, so the student version of the program is sorry, do you mean students as in like our students?
Your students,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm talking about a different
Yeah.
set. Like, firstly, we talked about academic staff or
Yeah.
staff members who are participating. Now I'm asking that I know that staff would get professional acknowledgement for participating. So what incentive or what is the reason why any student would do this program? And how are you marketing this to the students?
Yeah, so Achieve, we do have an Achieve for students, but it is slightly different to the one for academics. So our Achieve for Students program focuses on developing students' digital skills for education and employability. And we don't have to market to them because it's part of their program.
Oh, that's
Not
brilliant.
for all programs. We only have some programs at the moment who have opted into it.
Okay.
But what that means for the programs who have opted into it, it's a timetabled session series of sessions that students obviously should be coming to because it's just their regular classes
So is it a
essentially, even
zero
though it's
credit
not.
module or does it have any credits as
It,
well?
no, well, because it's already part of their modules that they're already doing. It doesn't have any
Okay,
bearing on
okay,
their
okay.
assignment. Yeah, we don't have any credits. I mean, obviously, the hope in the future would to hopefully have some way of having a credited version of a digital skills program, but yeah, we're nowhere near there yet, unfortunately. So at the moment,
Yeah.
it's just kind of to support them and get them started. Yeah, knowing the different platforms that we use, simple things like knowing how to submit an assignment on
Okay.
Canvas. And then, like I say, it does also have that employability aspect where we do kind of like we do a digital skills awareness session where we say this is why you need these. And we also we cover emails, not just how to use the digital tools for emails, but also good email etiquette, writing business
Yeah.
emails, that kind of thing.
So in a way, it's helping the students for their digital skills enhancement, particularly. Well, that's good
Yeah,
to know.
yeah.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. I think I'll again shift to the academic iteration of the that Achieve Legend, Star to Legend program now. I think you mentioned that you're working on the next iteration of the program. So, what specific digital skills does the program focus on for developing academic staff?
Yeah. So obviously, using Canvas is always entwined in it because of it being our VLE or virtual learning environment. We need them to know how to use it sufficiently. So we do always obviously include how to create content on Canvas, how to create a discussion. So just using Canvas in general. That being said, like I say, the new iteration is trying to broaden that because we don't want them being told the same thing again and again. So we look at tools. Obviously, they could use for discussions, Padlet,
Okay.
um, yeah, all those kinds of things. And then video editing, as I've already said, is a big part of it. How they can use Panopto not just to record their lectures, but also to create video content for their asynchronous learning. And like I say, how to use the different analytics tools and also how to obviously not only how to find them and use them, but how to analyze that data as
Oh,
well
that's
and look at
that's a
what that
brilliant
data is
example.
telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're
and
basically tied up
yeah,
everything skills in this program that people can navigate with.
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. And I also wanted to ask you that how do you evaluate that reflection or how would colleagues reflect on the skills that they've gained or achieved from from participating in this program?
Yeah, so previously, we did used to have free checkpoint reflections throughout the program, where they would actually be asked to kind of reflect on what they've learned, how they've put it into practice. We removed those due to obviously feedback that it was just too much. So now,
Yeah.
how we've decided to do it is when they first start the module, we have a policy at the university that we evaluate modules against. So what they do when they join the program is they complete a form that is basically the form that we complete when we're evaluating, and then they get their results. And obviously we tell them, what would be a good module, what would be an exemplary module, and they take their first assignment is to reflect on those results. as well as reflect on the policy and how it could help them and what impact it could have on their students. Then at the end of the program, they go back, recomplete that form, and
Oh,
then they reflect on the results pre-program, post-program. So
post-program.
hopefully they
Uh,
can see the improvements that they've made.
and yeah, and that also helps you to assess the impact of this program and also
Yeah,
observe the improvements that people have reflected upon. Well, that's a really
yeah.
brilliant approach that you have got this in this program. And it has already got me thinking on some approaches I need to adopt in my practice now and or in my like with my team as well. So could you share any success story of a faculty member whose teaching was transformed through this particular program or their
Yeah, I
participation?
mean, Yeah, I mean, like I say, in general, we have seen significant improvements in the modules of people who have completed the program. I think there is one particular success story, which is an academic that I'd worked with ever since I've joined, and she's tried to do the program a few times, but always kind of become overwhelmed, or other things have taken priority. Um, and she also always found herself scoring quite low when we reviewed her modules. She was getting quite a lot of one-to-one support, but obviously there's only so much that can be done. Um, and anyway, she finally managed to complete the program. And I think what particularly makes it a success story is when she was submitting the assignments, she was constantly getting the highest grade, or at least midway grade, and I could really see the fact that she'd really tried to use these tools and the skills that she was developing, but also the impact that it was having on her module. Because, like I say, we do always try and ask participants where possible to use a module that they're actually teaching
Okay.
on, so that it's not theoretical, it's actually having an impact on their students. So yeah, like I say, her module was just improving, and then when we reviewed it last, it came up like as one of the top modules. Sorry, I've just lost the lights in here. Um, so yeah, yeah, that, like
Well,
I say,
that's
difference
amazing.
between her modules before and after, and also now every time I see her, she's always like, "Thank you so much." I've all, she'll admit it herself. She's like, "I've always been a bit, fearful of trying these things in case something goes wrong, and
And
now she's like, I'll just give it a go, and if it goes wrong, I'll come and speak to one of you." One of you.
well, that's brilliant. Now her module is standing out as an exemplar that you might
Yeah,
share with other colleagues.
absolutely.
So, do you have any benchmarking that people can achieve to work towards, like something like a minimum benchmarking in a module or aspirational or good practice example that people can refer to? Or do they only have to participate? They only have a choice of participating in this program, achieve a star to legend, and then they can learn.
um yeah,
What
so
I'm just basically I'm
mm,
asking if some people choose not to participate in this program,
mm.
is there any way that they can still get the learning out of this to refer some good practice examples or refer to some exemplars?
Yeah, so I mean, if they didn't do the program, they would. There's no question they'd miss out on some of the learning. However, that being said, a lot of the stuff that we cover in the program, we have kind of like versions of somewhere else. So, for example, when we do the week on instructional design, there are about 3 micro learnings that they could go and complete outside of the course and get kind of the same learning that they're getting
Okay.
during that week. So we try and create learning in as many different ways as possible, so that even if somebody can't come to something, they've kind of got an option. It's the same with workshops. A lot of our workshops will have an asynchronous equivalent that people can do.
Okay.
That way, if they can't ever find time to come to a workshop, they've got it. And it's very much the same, yeah, with the program. There are other ways in which they could, yeah, find the learning.
Well, that's really amazing. I think I'm just out of curiosity, I'm asking, there is a program Star to Legend what do they actually get? Do they get any physical recognition like a badge or something?
So they do
I'm just
get badge.
asking. I'm just asking
I
because
do.
for our listeners, I could see Caroline is already wearing couple of badges. So I was just curious to ask.
Yeah, they do. They get a badge, and they also get a certificate as well. And what we do is at the end of every academic year, we run a graduations for the people who've completed Achieve Starter Legend. So we invite them to come and join us. We obviously provide some lunch,
Well, that's
and
exciting.
also, and then we do like a certificate presentation with their badges and everything. And yeah, it's been really, really well received. Everyone really enjoys it. So
Can I be an observer on one of these programs if possible, please?
yeah.
And yeah, jokes apart, I just want to ask you that you mentioned also that you have integrated feedback mechanism in the programs that people can reflect on the feedback and you have some checkpoints that you had earlier. So what's your process for integrating continual improvements of the program? That how often do you evaluate? Is it after the finishing of the program that you evaluate and make changes to it, or as you go along? What's the level of flexibility?
Yeah, so I mean, as it stands, we've always done it at the end of the program. So, and we do it
Okay.
at the end of every program. It's not the end of the academic year; it's at the end of a program. So we run a nominal group technique session with them for feedback. Where they obviously get the opportunity to speak to each other, provide us with their feedback, and then it's they do submit some of their feedback on Slido, but also what we do is so they go into breakout rooms, submit their feedback on Slido, then they come back into the main room and we discuss as a whole group. And I found this to be really useful because whilst what they say on Slido is great, and of course I revisit it and use it, but I've actually found I've got more out of just having an open and honest discussion with them
Yeah,
as to what they kind of want. That being said,
absolutely.
though, if somebody came to me halfway through the program and said, this is just not working, there's something really wrong here, I, of course, would certainly take
Yeah,
action as
yeah,
soon as I
yeah,
could. But luckily, we've never
absolutely.
needed to do that yet.
Well, that's great because some people might come with issues around accessibility or anything.
Mm.
It could be minor. I just thought, what is the level of flexibility in the adoption of changes that you make? But that's a really amazing. Thank you so much. And has there been any interesting feedback that led to a very surprising spin around how the program is approached?
Absolutely. So when I think I'd owned the program for about a year at the time. Well, yeah, probably a bit longer. And anyway, we were constantly getting feedback that obviously the program was too long. They couldn't attend sessions every week. So me thinking that I knew what everybody wanted, I was like, right, we'll cut the workshops down.
Yeah.
We'll keep the program, 12 weeks long, but we'll cut the workshops down. So what I did is I went over to a workshop every other week, and then there would be a supplementary workshop like in between that they could attend if they wanted to, but they didn't actually have to. They only had to attend the core workshops. So I'm delivering the program. We're doing this, and I'm thinking, oh, this seems to be working quite well. I'm getting good attendance at both workshops. Then when we actually got to the end of the program, one piece of feedback was we don't like not having a workshop every week. We want the workshop every week because it helps us to actually commit to doing
Yeah.
the learning. And surprisingly, the same feedback has actually come out of the most recent cohort, which although because of that feedback, we reverted back to doing a workshop every week, and we cut obviously the program time down instead. Um, even even they've actually come out and said that they really valued being in the workshops. They found the asynchronous content quite difficult to prioritize, and they much preferred coming to the workshops and actually seeing a demonstration of how
Yeah.
to use a certain tool. So yeah, I think that's been the most surprising is the fact that actually workshops are their favorite.
Well, that's brilliant that people reflected on this feedback and you've again reverted back to its original format. I think as you mentioned that there are some participation people have to make over 12 weeks. So what would be the minimum level of participation that people needs to have to be considered as a completed program? Do we have any checkpoints that they
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
be committed at least this much?
yeah. So, to, uh, to be honest, in short, it's doing the assignments.
Okay.
If you do, if you do the assignments and obviously do them correctly, and you get a grade for them, you would be considered complete on the program as long as you've done them all. Because, like I say, whilst we strongly encourage people to attend as many of the workshops as they can, the program has also been designed in a way that it could be completed completely in a completely self-paced way. So yeah, we wouldn't want to say just because you haven't been to any of the workshops that you can't pass
Okay.
the program. To us, I guess the actual doing the learning and applying it is the most important part. So if you've done the assignments, you've applied what you've learned,
So
whether that
basically, they have
be in the
showcased their
workshop.
learning, and this is what
Yeah,
confirms you that it's considered as completed. I think that
yeah.
makes sense to us. And also, I think we have mentioned about the challenges or what people have feedback that made you change the program. What has been any of the feedback that are specifically around positives, or what has colleagues enjoyed the most coming out of this program that
Like
makes you
I
feel
say,
proud of this program?
yeah, like I say, surprisingly, the workshops,
Okay.
yeah, that definitely has surprised me. In terms of other things, I think we constantly get good feedback on our level of support as a team, and I think that's something that as a team we should be really, really proud of. And I have specifically noticed, not just through the feedback that we've been given by participants, but also I feel like since we've been running the program, the awareness of our team in the academic community at our institution has been raised, and I've noticed a lot compared to when I started. So there's so many more academics who will now come to one of us when they're having a problem, or just if they've got a question, I
Yeah.
want to do this. Do you know if there's a digital tool that I could do that with? So I think it's really, really helped build some really good relationships with our
Absolutely.
academics.
I think building trust on colleagues and like assurance that you're around, that really helps. So even I was just thinking that also these programs also offer some collaborative kind of aspect to different colleagues do they have any kind of angle of collaboration that colleagues get an opportunity to work with different colleagues cross school, cross faculty at all? Or
Well,
is it all
yeah,
independently that they're working towards the learning and reflecting on this program?
yeah, so I mean, when they're obviously doing their assignments and bits like that, they're independent learning. It is
Okay.
very much they're working on their own. However, when it comes to the workshops, we do try and make them as collaborative as possible, so that they have that opportunity. Because obviously, we could have people on the program from running all sorts of different subjects. So we do try and instigate as much discussion as possible, as much sharing of ideas as possible, so that we've got that collaborative element of it. Yeah, where they're getting ideas from each other and yeah, using each other as a resource as
Yeah,
well.
I think absolutely this is the kind of experience you can offer to colleagues. And I think with the technology constantly evolving, how do you keep the program current and relevant?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so uh, it's it's mostly just about obviously if I come across a new digital tool or somebody else comes across a new digital tool that they think would be useful for other people to know about, it's just making sure that I'm adding those into the program. I'm a big believer in it doesn't hurt to know about several different digital tools that do the same thing, because then you can pick which one suits your learners best or that you find best to use. So yeah, it's for me, it's just about constantly making sure that when we find new things, that we're adding those in, and that we're even if we're not specifically providing learning in the program about it, but we're still referring back to them, referencing them.
Okay.
Yeah,
And just to
it's
confirm on this, that it's just not focused on the core resources that the institution already have got. This program also covers additional resources that institution doesn't have, but it's more towards aspiration that colleagues can use in their own practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So obviously, yeah, we of course cover the applications that we have because we want people to use them. But no, it's definitely not just focused on those. Our institution doesn't have, for example, doesn't use Padlet at an
Okay.
institution level, but we still include Padlet on the program. Yeah, and there are plenty. Oh, obviously Canva again. We don't have an institution level Canva account for academics, but we still introduce them to it on the program and say, this is a great free resource because you don't technically have to pay for it to get good use of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely wider than just the platforms that we use.
So do you even provide some guidance to them around GDPR, because the tools which are free might not be free as such, it's covering the data, their usage. Do you even provide any guidance around GDPR in this program at all?
No,
Okay.
we don't at the moment.
Okay.
No,
Yeah, I just sort of asking.
we trust them to to use
Yeah.
sensibly.
Yeah, as long as I do not use any professional personal data, it's all good to use.
Yeah,
But this is a program for getting them good experiences and knowledge about different technologies, and it's serving its purpose. So are there any emerging technologies or digital teaching methods that you're very much excited about to integrate in the near future?
um, yeah, I think obviously, I mean, one big one that we've started incorporating into the program, but kind of in a very kind of soft touch way at the moment, is obviously AI, because obviously it's so huge at the moment, and I'm personally I'm not an expert in AI. I keep using it a little bit here and there, but I haven't ever really delved into it. Like I say, I have a colleague
Yeah.
who's our expert, so I kind of just go to him with any questions or refer academics to him. But I personally am really interested in how it could potentially help us to better design learning, better plan learning. So yeah, that's kind of my interest in it. And I'm certainly hoping that in the future, when we've got some best practice around it, that could be incorporated into the program in terms of how they could use AI to to aid in designing their learning,
Yeah.
for sure.
And also use it with the student body as well to give them enough
Yeah,
confidence, I believe.
yeah,
Because
yeah. So
Yeah, because right now in the landscape, there are some virtual learning environments already that they have got AI designer
mm,
inbuilt in them. Like at our
yeah,
institution, we are using a Blackboard VLE. They have got AI designer inbuilt in it. I'm sure other VLEs would be able to catch up soon, and they'll have AI embedded in their platforms that would really enhance the user experience in terms of designing modules for academic staff
yeah,
members. But I think as long as they get some confidence in teaching, that would be helpful.
yeah,
And then when you mentioned that some
yeah,
colleagues are expert with AI and you're not, I believe nobody's an expert as such. It's just a matter of that you have used less in compared to them,
yeah,
because it might just take you a day or two just to catch up
yeah,
pace as long as you can see some videos and watch it all.
yeah,
And it's such a evolving area, and I just feel
yeah,
that even an expert, if they do not catch up with the landscape in a week's time, anybody can catch up, or they need to keep pace with the evolving landscape. And how has the program addressed the use of technology for both asynchronous or synchronous teaching separately? Or how would you guide them that what are the tools they can use it for different purposes?
yeah. So as we said, because I think naturally when the program first started, it had more of a focus on asynchronous because our focus was very much on improving the quality of our Canvas modules. Obviously, as the Canvas modules have improved, I've tried to start increasing the level of kind of like tools that you could use for synchronous teaching and learning. I think at the moment we have got quite a nice balance in terms of,
Okay.
no, I still think it's a little bit more heavily weighted to perhaps the asynchronous side of it.
Okay.
But however, we are starting to incorporate kind of, yeah, you could use this for synchronous. I think things like discussions in particular, even when it's discussions on Canvas, a lot of people, their default is to think of that as an asynchronous tool because obviously you put it in a Canvas module, it's part of their homework. Whereas I'm trying to kind of move away from that. We do it a lot when we work with students where we have a discussion in our Canvas module and we'll actually get students to go and post to it even during the class. So it's not just a tool for asynchronous learning. It can also be used in synchronous, kind of the same with, the likes of Padlet.
Yeah.
Also, even Kahoot, because I remember I always thought Kahoot was just a tool for synchronous
Yeah.
until I saw my sister using it to revise for her exams. And basically, she'd gone and found a Kahoot for herself, and she was just completing it by herself. And I was like, I did not know you could do that. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
there are a lot of tools you can use for both. It's just about kind of making the suggestion, because people tend to default to, oh, I'll use that for in-class teaching and that for online.
Absolutely. I think for our listeners, I must mention Kahoot is a gamified assessment tool. It's used quite widely in FE, but also adopted in HE quite a lot. And yes, coming back to it, that what you have mentioned, I'm just curious to ask you that don't you think sometimes over familiarity of tools, academic staff can make an overwhelming experience for students to be engaged with? Like some people might be using Kahoot in one session, other session they might be using Padlet, then something else. So I am just talking out of experience. It's very difficult to draw a line in terms of when you are actually like making your modules for enhancing student experience, but you might end up making it a very overwhelming experience. How do you address that? That to make people to make mindful decisions and keeping it simpler is also impactful at times?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. We do currently have work going on at the university around kind of standardizing the platforms that we use. And whilst part of me is for that, there is another part of me that wants to allow for individuality and allow for kind of
Yeah.
a broad use of tools. I think also using a broad use of tools is good for students because one tool you use may require a different digital skill to another tool that you might use. However, that being said, I do throughout the program constantly refer back to, you know, we're not expecting you to use all of these tools. In fact, please don't go and use all of these tools in your module. Pick the ones that you think are best, most suitable, and stick with them. So, for example, I would hate to go and see a module where they've got Canvas discussions, but also using Padlet. Um, there's probably no need to be using
Yeah.
both. Pick one so that at least within that module your students know what you're using and can use it effectively. I think, yeah, that's kind of my view on it is, yeah, you shouldn't be using an overwhelming amount of tools in the same module, but equally I still think there should be some individuality when it
Absolutely. I
comes
think
to different
yeah,
teaching.
absolutely. So this program is actually an opportunity for them to be familiarize themselves and gain confidence in different systems, but they can still choose how they should
Yeah.
adopt that in their practice that enhances student learning experience. And do you also cover principles in deciding the learning design of their modules in regard to what principles or approaches they use to adopt or that should help them think on the technologies? Or is it
Yeah,
is
we
it
do.
a separate is it a separate discussion that they need to have with subject matter expert or different teams, do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a bit of both. So obviously, as I've already mentioned, we do have the unit that they complete on instructional design, and
Okay.
it is instructional design that we use at the university as kind of the base for designing all learning. Um, in the module in the Achieve Starter Legend module, it specifically references using ADDIE as a method. There's also, so there's quite a long process for them that they can follow. But however, this program is also supplemented with one of our other team members who she sits in our team, but she's actually a member of the academic development department, and she runs these fantastic learning design days where she kind of sits down and goes through, and our team supports her with that by she kind of goes through the theory, the pedagogy with them, and then what we do is we help them look through their learning, and we say, well, what tool could you use for that, and sort of guide them on. So
that is basically
kind of
complementing this program. It's separate, but it's complementing this program. Oh, that's brilliant. And for our listeners, I must mention, ADDIE is an instructional design approach. ADDIE is analysis, development, design, implementation, and evaluation. If I'm right. Am I right? Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. It sounds right to me. Yeah.
Thank you,
And I say, we kind of do throughout the program. The idea is that, like I say, in the last unit, they kind of refer back to that process, specifically evaluation. So hopefully they kind of get an idea of the loop.
Perfect. And looking forward, how do you see the Achieve Starter Legend program evolving over the next few years? I know it's a very aspirational question, but feel free, whatever is your aspiration from this program.
Yeah. So obviously with the redesign of the program this year, it's something that I've been thinking about quite a lot. And I haven't quite yet come to a conclusion as to what we're going to do. So obviously we've just ran the first iteration of the redesigned program, and as a whole, I think it went really well. Obviously, there's always going to be aspects to improve on, to perhaps rethink. I think our next big question is whether we still run the simplified version alongside the more complicated one, more advanced version, so that our academics who didn't yet have a chance to complete the original version still can. And then I think in terms of then, obviously, the aim would be to get to where we're only running the advanced version of the program. But in terms of how that will obviously develop, I would say very much it's a case of wait and see what happens in terms of learning technology in the future. But I certainly hope that we can obviously. I'm hoping that with our more robust induction process, that moving forward, we'll be able to say genuinely they've got this journey where they do the digital learning induction, they kind of get all the core and base knowledge that they need, and then they come and do the Achieve Starter Legend program where they kind of develop that and build on it. I think that would be that's my aspirational goal.
Well, that's brilliant because the induction would set up their foundational skills, and then they can become a star to a legend. How many legends do you have at your institution so far?
Quite a few, to be fair. I can't think off the top of my head, but I know I've ran out of legend badges. We ordered loads when we started doing the badges, which was a couple of years ago now. So I reckon we must have about between 30 and 40, I would say.
That's
a
good number, absolutely. And just if any other institution were interested in creating a similar program, what foundational advice would you give them to start with?
Ask your learners what they prefer. It sounds so simple, but although the design of this program did come off the back of a digital skills survey, I don't think to begin with we were quite getting it right in terms of what people actually wanted to learn about. So I think my biggest piece of advice was, ask them what they want and don't be too generic in the survey, like be really, really specific. Because I think in the survey we rolled off so many different digital tools, and when actually we were never going to be able to train people on all of those. So I think it needed, it needs to be really specific, really scaled back, focused on what you can actually offer. And also I would say, I think to begin with, we missed out on a bit of the pedagogy side of things. We
Okay.
were too focused on the digital skills. And I think it is really, really important to consider, because you get a lot of people who say, well, this is great, but how am I going to use it? So I think careful consideration of the pedagogy of using the digital tools is
Yeah.
really, really useful.
That's a very valuable suggestion, Caroline. So whenever you are thinking of starting this at your institution, make sure that you have surveyed what your learners want to learn and achieve rather than focus on technology. You should focus on pedagogy and what is your aspiration particularly. Maybe check on your strategic objective around education, technology needs, and the aspirations or the gaps where you're finding institution. And I think Caroline has rightly suggested from where you can get started. If ever you open or think of opening this opportunity to other external colleagues, do let me know, Caroline. I would certainly want to
Yeah.
do Achieve Star to Legend program as an external participant or maybe an observer. And that has naturally brought to an end. Before we close, where can listeners find more about your work or get in touch with you to discuss further?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Caroline Bearpark. You are welcome to obviously share my LinkedIn
Uh,
details
Absolutely.
under this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm also more than happy to share, my university email address as well that people
Yeah.
can reach out to me on.
Thank you so much, Caroline. So if you want to reach out to Caroline, we'll share her LinkedIn profile information in the description of this video. And that brings us to the close of today's episode of Unfiltered by Empowered. A huge thank you to Caroline for joining us today and sharing her insightful and valuable insights for this program called Achieve Star to Legend. It's clear that initiatives like these are crucial for adopting the to the ever evolving educational landscape needs. Thank you again, and your dedication to enhancing digital literacy in the academic world. It's definitely seen, and we can acknowledge that for sure. And we have heard enough about this program that we are all, particularly me, I'm keen to participate and see the program in action. And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. We hope this conversation inspires you to think about your own digital skills that are being developed at your institution. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated on all our latest episodes. And until next time, stay curious and empowered. Thank you.